Welcome to today's episode of the Mindset Mentor podcast. I am your host, Rob Dial. Today, we're going to be diving into 3 evidence-based strategies to overcome your anxiety and your anxious thoughts. The one that I think will probably help you the most, I think all of them will help you, but the third one is the one that I think would start to help you the most overcoming your anxiety so that you can start to get a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more out of your comfort zone. And so, why is this important right now? I was doing research on this and found that the Journal of Anxiety Disorders have found that anxiety has gone up over 300% since the pre-pandemic levels. And anxiety is common. It's natural, and it's just a natural human response to stress, to uncertainty, but also most importantly to perceived threats, which we'll dive into today. What we're perceiving as threats that are coming up, not right now, usually in the future. And it's a good thing for humans to have anxiety because it's our brain projecting into the future and telling our body to prepare for possible threats, to prepare to fight, or whatever it might be that's coming up down the line. But if you're waking up every single day and you feel stress, you feel anxiety, and it's every single day or even all day long, when anxiety becomes chronic and it becomes something that you're always dealing with, it interferes with a lot of your daily life. And we really need to learn how to address it and not to just say, hey, just be better, but actually use some actual psychological evidence-based strategies that are grounded in science of, hey, how do we get yourself out of this? How do we get out of this when we notice ourselves in it? And today we're going to go over a few of those research strategies to help you with it. But first off, let's talk about what anxiety is. Because if we can understand what it is and why it pops up, then when we find ourselves in the state of anxiety, which we all do, I find myself being anxious sometimes in the mornings, especially in the mornings when my cortisol levels are high, then we can find a way to get ourselves out of it. So the definition of anxiety is a feeling of unease, such as worry or fear, that can range from mild to severe. And it's normal to realize that it's an essential human emotion that serves as an adaptive response to danger or to challenges. And anxiety can pop up in 2 different ways. It can pop up with emotional symptoms, which would be worry, fear, irritability, difficulty in concentrating, restlessness when you're trying to fall asleep and you can't seem to get yourself to go to sleep. So that would be the emotional side of it, but also physical symptoms as well. The interesting thing about anxiety is that you can feel it in your body. It can be muscle tension, it can be headaches, it can be trembling, it could be rapid heart rate, like your heart rate actually starts to go up. It could be shortness of breath. It can even mess with your digestion. And so I'm going to give you 3 different strategies to help you. The first one is the easiest one, and that's the one we're going to dive into. Number 1, which is the first one I think you should go to whenever you have the awareness of I'm feeling anxious. And the first one is deep breathing. And the reason why this is important to go over first is because with the other 2 strategies I'm going to give you, if you're trying to go into these strategies, which the other strategy I'm going to give you are some thinking strategies, but your emotion is so high, you won't be able to process through the brain and through your thinking process as easily. Because when emotion is high, logic is low. When you are really anxious, you tap into your fight, flight, or freeze. And that's where the animalistic side of you, your survival part of you, turns on. The thinking and processing and executive decision actually turns off when you feel that way. So if you get the feeling of I'm anxious right now, you need to go to breathing first so that therefore you can start to calm yourself down and your logic will be better after you calm yourself down. So deep breathing exercises can actually help activate your body's relaxation response and reduce anxiety levels. And so when you're talking about deep breathing, the interesting thing about breathing is when I tell people, hey, breathe deep, usually what they do is they go, and you can see that when they breathe in deep, their shoulders actually raise. And that's actually not a good breath. It's a breath, but it's not a good, deep, diaphragmatic breath. Your diaphragm, which is basically where your stomach is where you want to breathe through. And so when you breathe, what you want to do is actually breathe. And when you breathe in, your stomach should go out, but your shoulders really shouldn't move. And you get a deeper breath, you get a more quality breath when you breathe in through your diaphragm versus just through your chest. And the easiest one that I always recommend, because there's always like box breathing, there's 4-7-8 breathing, there's all these different type of breathing techniques. When you're stressed out, when you're anxious, the last thing you want to do is figure out if you're breathing correctly, right? I like to do just a simple one, which is 5 seconds in, 10 seconds out. So it would just basically try with me right now. So if we're feeling anxious, we're going to do 5 in. And breathe out. So 5 in, 10 out. If you can't breathe all the way in 5 or can't breathe all the way out in 10, it could be 4-8. It could be anything around there. But the important part is that the out breath needs to be longer than the in breath is. Because when you breathe out slower, you actually start to slow your heart rate down with a longer exhale. And the other thing that's important about it too is you release more carbon dioxide when you breathe out. And so the longer it is, the more carbon dioxide that gets released, which allows tension in your body, tension in your muscles, and the CO2 that's stuck inside of your body to start to get out. And so it lowers your stress levels to be able to do that. So that's the first thing that's important. Just 5 in, 10 out. Do at least 6 of them. You'll already start to feel better. Now that we've done those breathing, we're going to go into strategy number 2. Strategy number 2 is something called cognitive restructuring. It's a technique that involves identifying the challenging negative thought patterns that are then contributing to your anxiety. And this approach, just so you know, is rooted in cognitive behavioral therapy, which is one of the best forms of therapy that you can use. That's what a lot of therapists use CBT. And it's been shown to be really effective in treating anxiety disorders. And so there's a couple different pieces to it. There's 3 pieces to the strategy of cognitive restructuring. The first one is identifying the negative thought. So the first thing you want to do is try to identify the negative thought. It's to become aware of it, the ones that are actually fueling your anxiety. Because what happens is this: we have things that are called automatic negative thoughts. Those are just the ones that pop up into our heads, and we don't even really necessarily notice them because they're so automatic. And we don't really necessarily notice the thought, but we notice how we feel. And so when we notice that we don't feel good, we want to become aware of how the body feels. And then we want to actually come back and try to figure out what thought created that. Because there is a constant communication between your brain and body at all points in time. When your brain has a thought, whatever that thought might be, it'll send neuropeptides to your body, which basically tells your hormones either, hey, release dopamine or release serotonin, which make you feel better, or release cortisol, release adrenaline, which make you feel anxious, which make you feel uptight, which make you feel fight, flight, or freeze. And so we notice our body feeling a certain way. We need to take ourselves out of the jar. We need to read the label and go, okay, I feel like I'm shortness of breath. I feel like my heart rate might be up. Do I feel good or do I feel bad? If I'm being honest, I don't really feel good. Okay, now I'm taking myself out of the jar. I'm going to read the label. What is the thought? What was I just thinking? And that's the question I ask yourself. What was I just thinking? When I notice I'm not feeling very good, what was I just feeling? What was I thinking about? Usually you'll start to notice your anxiety-inducing thoughts, but the thing is you usually notice your anxiety-inducing thoughts after you notice your body's reaction to it. Your thought will usually come in so quick, your body will react to it, and then you just notice that you don't feel good. Okay, I don't feel good. What was I just thinking? What was I just thinking? Oh my gosh, I was just thinking about the presentation that I have to give next week for my boss. Okay, now we can start to work through those things. So that's the first thing, is to actually identify the thoughts that are actually not making you feel good. That's the first piece. Number 2 is you're going to challenge the negative thought. This is one of the things that people don't really do. They don't really challenge their thoughts. They don't challenge their beliefs. Once you've identified the thought, what you want to do is evaluate the accuracy and the rationality of the thought, considering alternatives, what else you could be thinking, any other outcomes that could come out other than, failing at your boss and looking like an idiot in the presentation. And you want to consider alternatives or different viewpoints as well. And so challenge the validity of the thought. How valid is that thought that is making you anxious? And if you've been listening to podcasts for a while, you know that I've said this many times. Psychologists have found that 85% of what we worry about never even actually happens. And so if we can challenge our thought or say, hey, maybe it's not going to be as bad as I think it's going to be, 85% of our thoughts of the things that we worry about never actually happen. Out of the remaining 15%, only 3% of it happens the way that we think that it will, which means that 97% of the things that you worry about, 97% of the things that you're anxious about turn out better than you think that it's going to. And if that's the case, what if instead of feeling anxious towards a specific thought, once we have identified the thought, so we do the breathing exercise, then we identify the thought, what if we go, okay, what I'm thinking about is that I have this presentation I have to give. And when I think about the presentation I have to give, I start getting really worried about what if I fumble? What if I mess up? What if I get fired? What if my boss thinks I'm an idiot? And we start to think that way. Okay, if I could think the worst of the worst, can I at least try to start think of something different? The best of the best? Or what if it doesn't turn out as bad as I think it's going to? Because 97% of the time, it's not going to turn out the way that you think. And so that's the thing, is you want to actually start to challenge the negative thought. And then after you challenge a negative thought, you want to try to replace the negative thought. After you challenge each individual negative thought that you have, you want to replace them with a more balanced, more realistic thought that doesn't contribute to your anxiety levels. Okay, I've got this presentation coming up. Listen, all I have to do is prepare. You've got this. You don't really like public speaking. You're not the best at it, but could it turn out better than I think that it's going to? Yes. Okay, instead of me failing and looking like an idiot in front of my boss, what are some other ways? You know what? I'm going to start to think positive to myself. Instead of thinking I'm going to fail in front of my boss, I'm going to prepare my ass off. I'm going to turn out really good, and this is going to be the best presentation I've ever given because I'm going to prepare so well for this. And you replace the negative thought with a different thought that's a more realistic thought, because once again, 97% of what you worry about doesn't happen the way that you think it's going to happen. So why don't I try to actually replace that negative thought with something that's more likely to happen? So that's strategy number 2, which then brings us into strategy number 3, which I told you is my favorite, which is called exposure therapy. And so the same way that if somebody is afraid of snakes, right? Like they could be afraid of snakes, but an easy way, easy might not be the best word because it's not easy for the person. An easier way to help the person start to get past it is to do exposure therapy, to see a snake inside of a cage across the room, and they can feel the feelings and go, okay, I'm safe, but it's inside of a cage. It's across the room. I'm okay. Cool. Perfect. Beautiful. And then maybe bring the snake a little bit closer, maybe a little bit closer. And you can feel those feelings of anxiety about the snake, but still know that you're safe. Well, so how do we do that if it's not necessarily a snake or heights, and it's really just the anxiety of what might be coming up in the future? Well, exposure therapy is a proven technique that allows you to gradually and systematically confront your anxiety, your feared situations, objects, thoughts, all of that until your anxiety starts to subside. And the process helps you learn that your fears, for being real, are often really irrational. They're kind of ridiculous sometimes. And that really makes you understand that you can tolerate the discomfort that comes with the anxiety. And so here's how you actually start to work through exposure therapy. The first thing that you're going to do is you're going to identify what is causing your anxiety. You're going to identify what's causing your anxiety. Just identifying what's causing the anxiety, this alone helps a lot of people, because you can kind of take yourself out and go, okay, it's not going to be as bad as I think it's going to be. A lot of people feel anxious, but they don't take a step back and actually start to find out what they're anxious about. And identifying your anxiety-inducing thoughts can help you feel less anxious. And so, an easy way to think about it is maybe you're feeling anxious today. It's a Thursday and you're like, oh my God, I feel so anxious. Damn, I felt so anxious all week. Why have I felt this way? I haven't slept really well. I feel like I've been anxious. Why do I feel this way? I don't know why I feel this way. Okay, let me take a step back. Why do I feel anxious right now? Do your breathing technique, and then you realize through some processing, maybe through some journaling, that you felt anxious since you've learned that you have to give a presentation for work in 2 weeks. And maybe you're terrified of public speaking, and you're even more terrified to do it for your company, right? And then what you do is you use what's called gradual exposure. The same way that if a snake is across the room, you can see it across the room, but then the more that it's around you, the less you start to fear it. And so the gradual exposure would be, okay, you know what I'm going to do? I know that my presentation is in 2 weeks. I'm going to finish my presentation as quick as I can. I'm going to get it done as thorough as possible. I'm going to know my information in and out. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to practice it out loud at my desk 10 times. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to sit at my desk where I'm safe. No one else is around. I'm going to practice it out loud 10 times. Maybe it's a 10-minute presentation, okay? It's going to cost you 100 minutes to do this. So you're going to just go over it 10 times, over and over outside or out loud by yourself so you feel more safe. You're getting more exposed to it. Then what you would do is get a little bit more gradual towards what you're actually going to be doing. Then you go into your living room and you practice using your TV as the projector. Using your TV, you pull your PowerPoint up. Maybe you have a clicker, a remote, and you practice it standing up in front of the TV 10 more times. Now you've already done it 20 times. You start to feel more confident with it because you start to feel more confident when you feel more prepared. And then what you would do to get a little bit more towards the snake getting closer is you're going to stay at work late one night, the week before, and you're going to go into the room that you know you're going to be presenting at, and you're going to practice it 5 to 10 more times for an hour or 2 hours after everybody leaves. You're just going to say, hey boss, I'm going to stay late. I want to work on my presentation. You know, the boss isn't going to get mad at you for trying to practice your presentation and to try to get better, right? You go in there, everybody's left, there's nobody there, and you're just like the only person. You're standing in the room that you know you're going to be presenting at so that you get used to the room, you get used to your surroundings, you get used to using the TV in that room, you get used to what the conference room looks like, and you do the same thing over and over and over. You do it 5 to 10 times. So by this time, you've already done the presentation 25 to 30 times, and then you're going to do the same thing the night before. And so the night before the presentation, so this was a week before, now night before the presentation, you're going to stay late again if you really want to hammer this and get it done. And then you're going to do it another 5 to 10 times the night before. And then the day of, you're going to come in early before anybody else does. So if everyone gets there at 9, you're going to get there at 7:30, you're going to get there at 8. And you're going to practice it before anybody else gets there. And by the time you actually give that presentation, you have had so much exposure to practicing the presentation, to standing up, to going through the PowerPoint, to being in the room where you're going to be doing it. And you will notice that you will feel so much less anxious towards the thought of the presentation, but you'll also feel so much less anxious the day of the presentation. And so you're going to expose yourself over and over and over again to this. And you're going to practice relaxation techniques, the breathing. You're going to practice ways to help you before I go into my presentation, I'm going to take the 30 minutes before, I'm going to do some deep breathing. I'm going to do those 5 in, 10 out that Rob was talking about. I'm going to go through my presentation again. And by that time, you've already done the presentation out loud 30, 40 times. You've been exposed to it. And you will go and you will do much better at it by doing that. And so those are some simple techniques to help you with it. Also, as far as if you feel anxious, a lot of times it's not just your thoughts. It can also come down to, your lifestyle. So a few things that really help with anxiety, regular exercise really helps with anxiety. If you're exercising 30 minutes a day, your anxiety will be reduced drastically. Your nutrition really matters. Eating whole foods. Try to limit or completely get rid of eating any processed foods. Like for me, if it comes in a box, I don't eat it. It's like 99% of the stuff that I eat does not come from a box. And so it's either fruits, vegetables, or meat, right? Another thing that really helps with lowering anxiety, limit caffeine, limit sugar. Some of you guys are like, oh my God, I can't deal without my coffee. Well, your coffee is actually spiking your cortisol levels. It's spiking your heart rate. It's making your breathing faster. And so if you feel a lot of anxiety, it might be really good to actually limit your caffeine for a week. Another thing that really helps, staying hydrated. Dehydration can actually contribute to increased anxiety levels. And another thing, have some less alcohol. Don't have as much sleep, or don't have as much alcohol. And usually because alcohol, just so you know, stays in your system up to 80 hours. So if you can just prioritize and make sure that your lifestyle is a little bit easier, you're getting really good sleep, you're eating the right food, you're working out, all of those things really, really help. And then the last one, which is, I don't know if I'm going to say the most important, one of the most important ones is to limit your screen time. Looking at your phone can really start to stress you out. I realize that with me, and this is anecdotal, but I've also read many articles on it, is if I look at my phone a lot throughout the day, I feel way more stressed out throughout the day. And so those are 3 simple techniques that can help you overcome your anxiety that you feel. And these are all based in science, evidence-based. These things work for you. The first thing is to make sure that you pay attention to your breathing, deep breathing, 5 in, 10 out. The second thing is to actually do the cognitive restructuring, which is, you find the actual thought that is a negative thought, you challenge the thought, and then you replace the thought. And the last one is to use exposure therapy so you feel more comfortable from that situation that is giving you anxiety every single day. And so that's what I got for you for today's episode. If you love this episode, do me a favor, share it on your Instagram stories and tag me in at Rob Dial Jr., ROBDIALJR. Once again, if you want the free journaling lesson, once again, it is a video. You have to go to Mindset Mentor Journal, and then you'll also get 30 days of journal prompts to help you get better at journaling as well. So I'm going to leave you the same way I leave you every single episode. Make it your mission to make somebody else's day better. I appreciate you, and I hope that you have an amazing day. Welcome to today's episode of the Mindset Mentor Podcast. I'm your host, Rob Dial. If you have not yet done so, hit that subscribe button so that you never miss another podcast. Today, we're going to talk about the 5 ways that you need to focus and things that you need to focus on in order to have more energy. Why would we want to do this? Well, because if you really think about energy, everything in this entire universe is energy. So if you see water or you see my hand, all of them, everything that you can see, that you perceive, that you can not perceive, it is all different vibrating masses. And so liquid just happens to be vibrating a lot faster than my desk that I'm standing at right now is. And so when you start to think about the world being an energy, then I actually think that one of the most important things that we could pay attention to every single day is our energy. If you think about the fact that we all have 24 hours every single day, what really changes what we're going to get done or not get done is how much energy we bring to every single day. And so if we can just have more energy, then we're going to get more done. And so, I'm going to talk about some things you probably heard of before. I'm going to talk about some things that maybe you might not have thought of before. I'm not going to talk about sleep because everyone knows, you should probably get some damn sleep. That makes sense. But I'm going to talk about things that give you energy and also drain energy from you as well. So let's dive into it. First thing that I listen to and the thing that gives me a ton of energy and what I always like to use as a tool to give me more energy is music. What is the music that you listen to throughout the day? When I go and I meditate, the first thing I do every single morning, besides going to the bathroom and brush my teeth and all that stuff, is my wife and I, we go out into the living room, we turn on YouTube on the TV, and we put on 20-minute meditation music and we meditate. And it's very chill music, right? But then what I do after that is usually I'll go and I'll make some coffee. And what I've realized is that if I keep meditation music on, when it goes from one YouTube video, it automatically goes to the next one. It's always chill. If I was just listening to meditation music, it's going to be more meditation music after. And I'll drink my coffee and I'll sit there and the music will still be on. And I'll notice that if it's chill meditation music, I'm very chill. But if I need to go and work out in 30 minutes, I'm not going to listen to chill meditation music before my workout. That's when I usually switch it to something like EDM. And what I realize, if I put on EDM or trance or rap or whatever it is that I want to listen to, that music is actually going to give me a certain type of energy. What is music? Music is literally sounds. What are sounds and words? Vibration. Sound is vibration. And vibration changes your frequency. Sound is vibration. Vibration changes your frequency. Words are affirmations. What you say and you think, you become. And so when you think about that, you think, okay, there's a lot of vibration that's coming through when I listen to music. The words are affirmations that I'm saying out loud. Are they the type of things I want to be saying to myself? Because those things influence what I think and what I say. And so for me, the past year and a half-ish, I've started changing the music that I listen to because I start thinking to myself, how is this music right now influencing my mood, influencing my energy, and the things that are being said in this song that I'm listening to? Is this the type of stuff I actually would say to someone that I love? Are these the type of things I want to say to myself? And so the music that you listen to has a very big shift in the energy. It causes a very big shift in the energy that you have and you bring to every single day. So just start thinking about more music that you listen to. If you're at an office and they got freaking, whatever it is, jazz music, that's slow elevator music that's playing in the background, and that's not giving you energy, but you want some freaking energy because you're about to go into cranking out a presentation, well, then maybe put some headphones on, blast some music that you love, and have that be something that changes your energy. If you don't feel really good today, maybe you had kind of a shitty morning, why don't you put on some music that makes you feel happy? Music has a way of shifting our energy. That's one of the first things I think about when I need to shift my energy is music. Next thing that I think about, number 2, is the people that you spend time with. I always say, one of my mentors told me this years ago, every person that you surround yourself with is either a battery or they're a black hole. A battery is somebody who gives you energy. You could spend 2 hours with them. After you leave their house, you feel energized, you feel amazing, you feel fired up about life. It's a full fuck yes for that person. This person's awesome. They make me feel great. There are also some people in your life that are black holes. It's just like they suck the energy out of you. You could go and spend 7 minutes with them and you're like, oh God. And you just feel like you don't have a whole lot of energy. You have to realize, being a human, this vibrating structure, this frequency that you are, is that you are also feeling other people's vibrations as well. Have you ever met somebody and the first time you meet them, you're like, damn, I don't know what it is about that person, but like there's something. You ever met somebody like that? Person's awesome. But have you also ever met somebody where you're like, there's nothing that's actually wrong that is said or that you can see, but like your body is just sensing like, yeah, something's not right about that. Like something's doesn't feel right. You can't perceive it. You can't see it. You can't hear it. None of that, but it just doesn't feel right. That's your body picking up on the other person. There's something that's not lining up with yours. And so it's really important to take a step back and actually start to think about the people that you spend time with. If you work in an office, there might be some people that they're kind of like black holes. How can you try to avoid them more? How can you set up some more boundaries? Because I know a lot of people are bad at boundaries. How can you set up boundaries so that person can't really come and invade your space? What is it that you can do? Everything can be figured out with a plan. Maybe you just haven't come up with a plan of exactly how to avoid that person as much as possible. So start to think about the people that you surround yourself with. Even if they don't offend the senses, we always say, like, they don't look bad, they don't smell bad, they don't talk bad, but there's just something that's off about them. Is it possible for you to spend less time with them? And so really start to pay attention to people who give you energy and steal energy from you. If you want more energy throughout the day, how can you spend more time with people who give you energy? Okay. Next one, number 3, start to think about the information that you consume. You're listening to this podcast. Great. I love it. But also pay attention to everything else outside of this, right? Do you ever feel like, oh man, it's 3:00 and I'm just so exhausted today? And you're like, why am I so exhausted? Like, I didn't do a whole lot. I don't feel like there's a whole lot of things that really it's not like I went on a run. I didn't do a whole crazy workout, any of that type of stuff. And then you start to think about, like, what type of information have I been consuming today? And you realize that maybe you've been around people who have been talking really negatively, or maybe you've been in a room where the news is on in the background. You're still perceiving that, even if you're not directly paying attention to it. But start thinking about the information that you consume. One of the biggest things that happened to me about a year and a half ago is that I realized that even the people I follow on Instagram make a massive shift in the energy that I have throughout the day. And this was during, all of the crazy stuff that was happening a couple of years ago. I noticed that I was following some people that were, on the left side and the right side, friends that I had for years, people that I actually know in person. And I would see their stories. And after their stories, I would feel like shit right after. And I was like, man, it's 8:00 in the morning. I haven't really done anything. I just had my cup of coffee. I haven't got my workout in yet. Like, why do I feel so drained? And I realized that some of the people that I actually know in person were just terrible to follow on Instagram. And I realized that the energy that you consume, whether you realize or not, is changing the way that you feel throughout the day. And so you may have somebody that you need to start unfollowing. I like to call it the Great Purge. Go through your Instagram, go through your Facebook, whatever you need to do. About a year ago, I unfriended 3,000 people on Facebook because I was like, I don't really know these people anymore. Like, I might have met them one time 16 years ago, but I started unfriending all of these people. And I realized that I started to create the actual information that makes me feel better. And on Instagram, I went on there and I unfollowed like 300 or 400 people and pages and all of this stuff. Because I thought to myself, if I'm going to be consuming information throughout the day, I really want to be in charge of making sure that I'm consuming information that is helping me get better, that's helping me improve, that's motivating me to create the life that I want to. And so I stopped following people who I know in real life and people who might be political figures and all this stuff. And I was like, I'm going to curate the information that I want to see that is going to help me become better. And so you've got to be real careful with the information you consume. Most people know, I hope that you know that the news is really messing with people. So that's not a thing that I'm really going to dive into and talk about, but I don't watch the news. I don't watch any of those things. I don't let outside influences come into my brain as much as possible. And so start paying attention to all of the information that you consume in your brain. Number 4 is another thing that you consume, the food that you eat. Obviously, this one should be super important to everybody that's out there. But for me, everybody has different diets. Everybody has different things that make them feel better. You can have Whole30, you can have vegans, you can have carnivore diets, you can have all these different diets. The one thing that I have found that works best for me, and your body's different than mine, your body's different than everybody else that's listening to this podcast, is find what gives you the most energy. There are things that I know that throughout the day, if I eat it, it's going to make me have a little bit spike of energy and then drop, like sugar. 100% will do that. Carbs will absolutely do that. My thing is if it wasn't once alive, I don't eat it, whether that be a plant or whether that be an animal. If it wasn't once alive, I don't eat it because I don't want something that was manufactured by somebody else. Because usually when it's manufactured by somebody else, they're trying to get profit. When they're trying to get profit, that means they're cheaping on it. And that means that I'm probably consuming a whole bunch of crap. Tons of crappy seed oils. There's almost seed oils in everything that you could have, and that leads to heart disease. So I don't want that. So the way that I think about it is, okay, if it wasn't once alive, like really physically alive and not changed, I'm not going to eat it. Plants, animals, that's it, nothing else. Now, there's certain things that I could eat in the morning that could take energy away from me. And there's certain things that I can eat in the middle of the day that give me energy. So I start paying attention and planning my day out and planning the food that I eat based off of how I want to feel each day and how I need to get the certain amount of calories, a certain amount of protein, all that stuff as well. And so just start to pay more attention to the food that you eat. Food can either give you energy or it can steal energy from you. And for some of you guys, for everybody, digestion is the most important thing that you do because it is the most energy consuming thing that your body does. So for some of you listening to this, fasting might actually give you a lot more energy. And so maybe you start trying some fasting. Maybe don't eat until 2:00 and see if that gives you more energy. For me, I know I eat breakfast. I usually have the exact same thing every single morning for breakfast. And then I usually don't eat until about 4:00 because I know that if I fast in between there, I usually feel the best. I usually get the most done. My brain is cranking, and that's what I care about is my brain cranking so I can get as much done and have as much energy as possible. And so you have to pay attention to the food that you eat. So what works for you is what works for you. I don't care about anybody else's diet. I care about what's going to give you in your body the most energy. That's number 4. And number 5, the 5th tip that I can give you to have as much energy as possible is to don't rely on the way that you feel. Don't rely on the way that you feel. Don't decide, okay, if I feel motivated, then I'm going to go to the gym. If I feel like I have enough energy, then I'm going to do this. What I mean by this is force movement. Make yourself do what you said you were going to do. If you're the type of person that is hoping that you have enough motivation to go to the gym or hoping that you have enough motivation in order to get your project done that you need to do for work, you're going to be hoping and waiting for a long time. What I care about is being the most consistent person in the room, not being the most motivated person in the room. And so how can you make yourself do what needs to be done? Because if you're waiting for motivation, you're going to be waiting for a long time. The interesting thing about motivation, psychologists have done many studies on this and find that motivation, if you're waiting for it to come before action, you're going to be waiting for a long time. Motivation usually doesn't come before action. Motivation usually follows action. And so if you want to be motivated, the best way to be motivated is to get your ass moving, even when you don't feel like moving, even when you didn't have a great morning, whatever it is. So if you want to give yourself a chance to be motivated, you have to get in action. You have to start moving. And what happens is, as you start moving, your heart rate goes up, your energy starts to change, you start to get endorphins, you start to get more motivated and more motivated and more motivated, all because you decided to take action no matter how you felt. Motivation follows action, not the other way around. And so those are the 5 tips to have more energy and get more done. Make sure you pay attention to the music that you listen to. Make sure you pay attention to the people that you're spending time with. Make sure you pay attention to the information that you consume and that's going into your brain. Make sure you pay attention to the food that you eat. And last one, make sure that you force yourself to take action in order to give yourself a chance to be motivated. So that's what I got for you for today's lesson, for today's podcast. If you love this podcast, please do me a favor, share it on your Instagram stories and tag me in it, Rob Dial Jr., ROBDIALJR. And I'm going to leave you the same way I leave you every single episode. Make it your mission to make someone else's day better. I appreciate you, and I hope that you have an amazing day. Welcome to today's episode of the Mindset Mentor Podcast. I'm your host, Rob Dial. If you have not yet done so, hit that subscribe button so that you never miss another podcast episode. And if you're listening to this and you've never actually seen this podcast, if you go onto YouTube, if you've ever used that little thing called YouTube, you can actually type in my name, Rob Dial, on YouTube. You can subscribe to us on there. I get tons of videos of people that are watching me in their living room, on their TVs, through YouTube app and all that stuff. So if you want to actually see through what we're doing and see us here in the studio, some behind the scenes, go ahead and follow me on YouTube as well. Today, we're going to be talking about rejection. And I'm going to be talking to you about what most people are afraid of, which is in some way being rejected. And then I'm going to teach you, number one, why rejection happens and why we're afraid of it. But number two, why the power of no is so important for you in your life and your growth. Because here's the thing. Let's be real. At some point in time in your life, you will be rejected. You will, unless you literally just sit inside of your house from this moment on throughout your entire life, you will be rejected at some point in time in your life. There's no real way to get around it, whether it's a job application or a scholarship, or you go up to that person who you've been seeing at the gym for a really long time and she's kind of cute and I think she thinks I'm kind of cute. You walk up to her and you get rejected. Whatever it is, let's face it, you will eventually face rejection. And rejection can hurt. It doesn't actually hurt us. We hurt us when we're thinking about being rejected. Because what happens is it can bring up the feelings of unworthiness. We can bring up the feelings of doubting whether this is what we're actually supposed to be doing with our life. It can bring up the feelings of loneliness. But what if we could look at rejection in a little bit different of a light? What if instead of letting it bring us down or allowing ourselves to bring us down is probably a better way of saying it, we could use it to actually grow ourselves, learn from it, and improve? What if we could use rejection as one of our strongest like I think the way I think about it is like doing sets at the gym, right? And you're lifting really heavy. If you want to lift really heavy, then you want to grow, you're going to need a spotter. What if you could have like rejection be your spotter? Like you can think of rejection as your sidekick on your way to success, whatever success means to you. And so that's what we're going to explore today is the power of no. The power of being rejected. But before I dive into it, let's talk about why in your mind rejection feels like it hurts. Why are we so afraid of it? Well, it's very simple if you go back to the fact that 200,000 years ago, we were tribal beings. And if we were rejected, if we were kicked out of the tribe, there was pretty much no way we were going to live. Rejection basically meant death. But today, rejection does not mean death at all. You could be rejected 100,000 times and not be killed, not face any sort of death. But it can also bring feelings of like loss. It can feel those. So it's like rejection can feel like, oh my gosh, there's something unsafe here. But rejection can also feel like you lost something because you were so excited about that job and you didn't get the job. And you feel like you lost it even though you never actually had it. It could be the relationship as well. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to ask her out. And then she rejects me. Oh my gosh, I've lost that thing that I thought I was going to get. It could be a raise where you're rejected for a raise. Oh my gosh, I thought I was going to make more money. And now it feels like loss because of the fact that I didn't get that raise that I didn't get that money that I had my mind set on. And it shines on rejection at its core, shines on one of our biggest insecurities. And that insecurity is unworthiness. Rejection shines a light on one of our biggest insecurities, which is unworthiness. I am not worthy. And if I'm not worthy, I won't be loved. That is one of our biggest fears that we have. And so what we do is we have internalized the belief that our worth is tied to some sort of achievement. Like if we don't reach our goals, then we're not good enough. If she doesn't say yes when I ask her out, then I'm not good enough. If my boss doesn't give me a raise, then I'm not good enough. If I don't get this job that I apply for, then I'm not good enough. When in reality, those two things are not attached in any sort of way, but we think that they are. And so we've internalized the belief that our worth is tied to our achievements. And if we don't achieve that goal, we're not good enough and we're a piece of shit and we didn't end up getting what we wanted to and all of this stuff. So when we start to think about that and we take a step back, what can we do instead? So to not take action would mean that we don't feel those feelings. And so what do I do? Instead of feeling those feelings of insecurity, of unworthiness, I'm just going to do nothing. We will do everything, every other action, except for the thing that we need to do to move the needle forward, because we don't want to possibly be rejected, possibly feel unworthy, possibly feel like we lost something, possibly feel our insecurities. And so what do? Nothing that moves our life forward. We settle for safe and comfortable. But before we dive into the benefits of rejection, it's important to know what we're getting rejected for. Like what we feel like we're getting rejected for, right? So it's really funny because we actually take these insecurities and place them on something where insecurity doesn't need to be there. So I'll give you an example. For me, this is very easy to talk about because I've trained thousands of salespeople. And thousands of salespeople, almost every person struggles with making phone calls. Almost every person struggles with making phone calls and they don't know why. And so they'll do everything that they can. They'll organize their numbers. They'll research these people, do everything that they can to make them feel like they're working, when in reality, they're just being busy instead of productive, when the most productive thing they can do is make phone calls. And so having trained thousands of salespeople, almost everyone struggles with making phone calls. Not because of the rejection of somebody saying no, but because somebody saying no would make us feel like we're getting rejected as a human. And so it's not that we're afraid of the no, we're afraid of the no making us feel like we're not worthy. And we think, and that's why it's important to be like, what am I actually being rejected for? If I'm a salesperson and I go and make a presentation, I get in front of somebody and they say no to me, are they saying no to me as a person? No. In reality, all they're doing is just saying no to a business proposal. The no is just the sales process. That's it. They're saying no to the business proposal. They're not saying, no, Rob, you suck. But we think to ourselves that that's what's actually happening. And so we try to avoid it. We personalize something that shouldn't be personal in the first place. It's just no to buying a product. Is every person going to buy a product from you? No, of course not. But we take this and we change it and morph it subconsciously most of the time. Most of the time, we're not even consciously thinking about this, but we take no as in this example, and there's many examples, and we change it and we morph it and we make it all about ourselves because all people are narcissists in some sort of way. How is that so? Don't have time for it in this podcast, but we think everything is our fault and the world revolves around us. And if somebody says no to our business proposal, they're actually saying no to us. So we morph it and change it and thinking that I'm not enough. And I don't want to think that I'm not enough. So we avoid it. We avoid making the phone calls. We avoid doing the things that we actually should do because we're afraid of what will happen if we actually step out into the unknown. But there's many benefits of no. There's many benefits of getting rejected. And that's what we're going to cover today is the actual benefits of going out of your comfort zone and actually getting the phrase no and being uneasy with the feeling of unworthiness and uneasy, knowing that these things will probably come up with, I don't feel like I'm enough, and feeling those and going, this isn't true. The person just said no to my business proposal. So the first thing that's really important about the benefit of no is it gets us out of our comfort zone. We have to feel the feelings of fear and do it anyways, because fear never actually goes away. Someone asked me the other day, I was on a Zoom call with one of the programs that I teach, and one of the ladies there said, Rob, what's the secret? What's the secret sauce to overcoming fear? And I was like, well, if you can figure that out, please let me know, because there's no magic pill. There's no magic pill like, hey, if you do this thing, you'll never feel fear again. Fear will disappear. No, fear is always going to be present. Expect that fear is always going to be present, but feel the fear and do it anyways. Feel your fear, whatever that fear is that you're feeling inside of your body, and do it anyways. If you never get rejected, you never leave your comfort zone, and your destiny is to have the same life you currently have. That's just the honest truth. If you never leave your comfort zone, you never get rejected, you never put yourself out of your comfort zone, your destiny is to have the exact same life that you currently have. And if you listen to this podcast, I don't think that you want the same life that you currently have. And if we never hear no, it can mean that we're not taking enough risks. And it doesn't mean that we're not good enough or smart enough or pretty enough or not a good parent or any of those things. It just means that, hey, you're sitting in your comfort zone and you're not going and taking any risks. So how can we use this to go, you know what? I got rejected. I put myself out of my comfort zone. That's a good thing. You know what? I did feel fear before actually making that cold call. Did the person hang up on me? They did. But you know what? I did something that I was afraid of. And that right there in itself is a win. So how can we turn rejection into a positive force in our lives? I had a video I saw years ago, and I remember it was a TED Talk and a blog that this guy had. And this guy was afraid, like he was decided to leave his job and become an entrepreneur. And with being an entrepreneur, you have to be rejected a lot of times. And he realized he was holding himself back because he was afraid of rejection. He was 30 years old, and he heard about this idea called rejection therapy. And rejection therapy is what he was reading a book about. And he said, you know what? I believe in this. I'm going to try for 100 days just to go out, ask for something completely ridiculous, and just be rejected. And so his only goal was to go out and be rejected every single day. And then he filmed it and he blogged it. Like, he did crazy stuff too. He went to a burger place, he ate the burger, and then he walked up to the front and said, hey, can I get a burger refill? And they're like, no. He decided one day he was going to walk into a dog groomer and asked them to cut his hair like a German Shepherd. He walked into a Super Bowl party with chips for people that he didn't know. He just heard a party going on one time. He went and got some chips, knocks on the door. They open. He goes, hey, I brought chips. Can I join your party? They ended up saying yes. And so he just did these things where he was like, I'm going to get rejected and be okay with rejection, okay with rejection, okay with rejection. And he got a lot of no's, and he became better with rejection. But what was really surprising about the entire thing is he got a lot more yeses than he was expecting. He knocked on a random person's door and asked them, he had a soccer ball in his hand, knocks on a random person's door and just asked a guy if he could play soccer in his backyard. And the guy said, yeah, sure, come on in. The guy just let him play soccer in his backyard by himself. And he was like, he didn't expect him to say yes, but he's like, screw it, I'll go ahead and do it anyways. He walked up to a police officer in his car and he said, hey, can I drive your car and pretend like I'm a cop? And the cop said, yeah, go for it. And took pictures of him pretending that he was a cop in his cop car and let him drive it. He was on a plane one time and he asked the flight attendant if he could read the safety announcement, and they said yes. And so he read the safety announcement. He went into a Krispy Kreme donuts and asked them, hey, can you take 5 donuts and link them together to make them look like the Olympic symbol? And she's like, yeah, I guess that I can. And so she did it. And then at the end, he's like, okay, how much do I owe you? And she's like, no, this is free. This was fun. I like doing this. And so he was blown away at how kind people were and how many times he was afraid of being rejected and thought for sure, I'm definitely going to be rejected for this thing. And people didn't. And what he says is when you open yourself up to the world will open up to you. When you open yourself up to the world will open up to you. If you think about like C.S. Lewis was rejected 800 times before he got yes for his first manuscript. And if he had given up, there would be no Chronicles of Narnia. Think about that for a second. 800 no's before he finally got a yes. So what are some other benefits of no? First off, the thing that I think is great about no and being rejected is we can actually use it as a positive feedback mechanism. We can see, oh, I was rejected. If you're in a sales process, what could I have done better? How could I have listened to my prospect more? How could I have presented it to him better? What did they say that maybe I missed? And we can learn and we can improve. Like the first thing I think about, the first time I felt rejection in this podcast, years and years and years ago when I first started it, it was like, I would say like 4 or 5 months in of this podcast. And I got my first negative podcast review. And the first thing that popped in my head was, fuck her. Who is she to tell me that I'm not a good podcaster, all this stuff? And then I thought about it and I was like, maybe she's right. Because what it actually said, I don't remember specifically what it said, but it was something along the lines of 1,400 episodes and I still can't freaking speak correctly. But it was something along the lines of, for running a motivational podcast, this guy has the most unmotivating voice. And immediately what I thought was like, screw her. Who is she? She doesn't know what the hell she's talking about. And then after my feelings that insecurities and unworthiness went away, I went, I wonder if she has a point. Like, let me listen back. And I realized, because of the fact during a podcast, back in those days, there was no cameras that we used, any of that stuff, because of the fact that someone can't see me, maybe I need to be more emphatic in the way that I speak. Maybe I need to use my tone better to get across what I'm trying to say. And it was really, really positive feedback. And I think back to being really insecure in that moment, but taking it as positive feedback and thinking, how can I become better? And I'm super grateful for that lady that left a shitty review. That's why we need more people to give positive reviews to this podcast. So if you do love it, please do so. But how can we use those rejections as a chance to reassess our goals and to make sure that we're doing what we need to do to get better? Are we pursuing what truly matters to us, or are we just chasing something that doesn't really align with our passions because we're just trying to go for money and we're not really following our true passion? Rejections can be a really good wake-up call to make sure that we're not settling and we're doing something that really does make us happy. Another really good way to turn rejection into a positive is to use it as a motivator. When we get rejected, it can be tempting to throw in the towel and to just give up. I've thought about it many times, but what I tend to do is actually use rejection as a motivator. I love having a chip on my shoulder. I love seeing like an event with people who are podcasters or influencers that I was not invited to, and feeling the feeling of rejection going, well, they're going to know who I am one day. I love the feeling of seeing all of these, these are the top podcasts in the world. And I look and I don't see my name and I'm like, okay, 10-4, let's go ahead and keep on going, right? We can use it as a motivator. We can have a chip on our shoulder to prove other people wrong. So instead of giving up, we can use rejection as a fuel to actually motivate us to work harder and to improve ourselves. Like, rejection can be a really tough pill to swallow. It can. It brings up all of the feelings of insecurity, and when the thoughts of when you weren't picked for the kickball team and you were the last kid and nobody picked you, like, it could bring up all those feelings of insecurity. It can be a really tough pill to swallow, but it can be a great opportunity for us to learn from our mistakes and come back even stronger than we were before. Another thing that we can do, we can use rejection as a way to build our resilience. When we're faced with failures, when we're faced with messing up, when we're faced with any of those things, it's really easy to get discouraged. Like, getting discouraged and losing faith in yourself is an easy thing to do. But it's harder to go, I'm going to continue to keep going anyways. I'm going to build this resilience. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to use this as fuel to keep me going. But instead of letting those rejections that come at us define us, we can use them as a chance to actually develop resilience inside of us and learn how we can bounce back whenever times get tough. Because there will be tough times, no matter what. You're going to be rejected in life. People are going to die. Things that you thought were going to happen are not going to happen. How can we use those rejections as a chance, the power of rejection, the power of no, the power of not feeling good enough, as a way to actually bounce, like really get ourselves to be good at bouncing back when we get into tough times. And we can learn how to handle rejection. We can handle setbacks. We become more resilient and better equipped to handle all of the challenges we might get in the future. So when you start to think about this, rejection, can it be scary? Yes. Can we not want to do something? Yes. Can we feel unworthy, unlovable, that we lost something? Yes. But we can also look at it in a completely different light and say, 10-4, let's go. This is what I was built for. Continue to reject me, to continue to think that I'm not good enough, continue to doubt me, continue to give me feedback so I can learn to get better. So the next time we're faced with rejection, don't let it get you down. Use it as a chance to grow yourself, to learn, to find new opportunities. Remember, every no is just one more step closer to a yes. And who knows, the next yes could be the one that completely changes your life. But if you just decide to fall away and not take action, your life will never change because you didn't go for that next yes. So instead of letting rejection hold you back, embrace it, learn from it, and use it as a way to grow and improve yourself. So that's what I got for you for today's episode. If you love this episode, please share it on your Instagram stories and tag me in at Rob Dial Jr., ROBDIALJR. And I'm going to leave you the same way I leave you every single episode. Make it your mission to make someone else's day better. I appreciate you, and I hope that you have an amazing day. Welcome. Today we're going to be talking about how to build a life that has no regrets, so that when you get to the end of your life, you are excited about what you created versus dying with regret. Let's go ahead and dive in. I use death as a way to motivate me to get the most out of my life, to enjoy it more, to do more, to achieve more, to have more fun, to have more love, all of that. And so it's really important, I think, to look at what people are doing when they're at the end of their life and think like, hey, what did they do well? What did they think was good? What did they think was bad? And how can I learn from that? Because just as Tony Robbins always says, success leaves clues, I think that failure also leaves clues. I think that regret leaves clues as well. And so there was a book that was written years ago called The 5 Regrets of the Dying. And I've brought this book up many times in this podcast, but over an 8-year period, there was a lady who worked in hospice care. And hospice is basically when someone's terminally ill, they're going to die. They know that they're going to die. And over 8 years, this nurse worked with people and she got really close relationships with some of them. And as they were towards the end of their life, they started sharing some secrets with her and they started sharing happiness and love stories and amazing things, but they also shared a lot of regrets. And so she wrote a book on the 5 regrets that she heard the most. And I think it's really important for us to know, because if success leaves clues, then regret and failure also leaves clues. So why don't we listen to these people who went through their entire life and were at their deathbeds and went, I wish I would have done something different, so that we can make sure that we don't do the same things that they did. And so the first one and the most common one was that I wish I lived a life that was true to myself and not the life that others expected of me. This was the most common one, is that I wished I lived a life that was true to myself and not the life that other people expected of me. Isn't that crazy? Most people live lives that allows them just to fit in. They don't follow their passions because they're too afraid of what other people might think or say. When I ask people what their biggest fears are, one of the biggest fears that almost always comes up is the fear of rejection. And so a lot of times what people will do is they will do what society or what their parents or what other people think that they should be doing and not actually follow their passions. They want to be an artist or they want to be a musician, but their mom thinks that they should be an accountant because you can't make any money as an artist. So then they become an accountant and their dreams slowly die. And so the main regret is not having lived a life that was true to themselves. Isn't it crazy that we allow what other people think of us to come in the way of what we truly want? And it's like we just kind of fit in a lot of times. And, it's like that Jim Carrey quote that says, your need for acceptance will make you invisible in this world. And so how can you look at this and be like, what is it that I want? Not what my mom wants, not what my father wants, not what society wants, not what my spouse wants. Like, what do I want to do with my life? We have one life, at least, maybe there's a heaven, maybe there's a hell, maybe there's reincarnation, maybe there's not. I don't know. I've never been through any of those things. But I do know that I am here and I am Rob Dial in this moment. And I know that I have this one shot in this life. And so we have one life and we're floating on this tiny little rock through infinite amounts of space, through trillions and trillions and trillions of stars and planets and all kinds of other stuff. And we let some other people's opinions or thoughts of us stop us from doing the one thing that we want to do in this life. Isn't that fucking crazy if you think about it? Not even, and usually the people whose opinions you're worried about, if you look at their life, you're like, yeah, their life isn't even that great, right? So like, if you wouldn't want to trade places with them, why are you going to take their advice? And there was a lady that was named Grace that she was talking about. And the lady was one of the ones that regretted of not living a life that was true to herself. And she said to the author, she said, live true to your own heart. Don't ever worry about what other people think. Promise me that before I die. And so when we look at this, what can we learn from it? Knowing that if you're listening to this and I'm speaking this, that we're currently still alive, we need to figure out what it is that we want in our lives. We need to figure out, first off, what is it we want? And then we need to actually live life on our terms, not hurt people or, push people away or do any of that type of stuff. But it's like, hey, we want to live a life that's on our terms. If people don't like it, hell with them. That's just the way that it goes. This is your one shot at life. Do what you're passionate about. Do what you want to do. What is in the back of your mind that you've been thinking about for so long, but you just haven't had the courage to do? If you can't stop thinking about it, don't stop working for it. Figure out what is the thing. You're 50 years old and you had this passion when you were 23 years old and you gave it up for whatever reason. Can you start to rediscover it? And so that's the first thing, is that I wish I lived a life that was true to myself and not the life that other people expected of me. Second one is that I wish I wouldn't have worked so hard. And this is that she said in the book that a lot of this was what she heard from a lot of men. And although, I do really speak about working hard, and I do love the fact that you can work hard and create your dreams and everything, there does need to be balance at some point in time. I did an episode a little while ago where I was talking about how, I worked 110 hours a week for 3 years. And I realized that's not life, because life is what is outside of work. And so what was really sad is she talks about a man who worked really hard for 15 years with a company so that he could save for retirement so that him and his wife could go travel. And then when he was supposed to retire, he decided to stay one more year just to make sure that they had enough money saved. He figured, hey, I've worked for 15 years. What's one more year? My wife and I, we still got years left. I'm going to go and get one more year, and then I'm going to retire, and then my wife and I are going to go travel. And she waited his whole time that he was working, when he was finally going to retire. And then 3 months before that final year, that was the extra bonus final year, 3 months before the final year was over, she died. And him and his wife never got to travel. And he was filled with so much grief because all she wanted to do was travel with him and to experience life with him. And they should have done it for 9 months, but he decided to delay it an extra year, and they never got their traveling, and she died 3 months before. And so he was, when he was at the end of his life, he was really sad because he said, man, I had this woman that was just waiting for me to travel, and she was so excited and she wanted to experience life with me. And she didn't, because I wanted to work harder. I wanted to make more money. I wanted to feel like I achieved more. And so he's, somehow he had this wonderful woman that waited so patiently for him to retire. And then he was sitting there dying by himself. And so it's just something to think about, where it's like, work hard when you're supposed to work hard, sure, but also don't make your work your life. So what can we learn from this? It's okay to love what you do. It's okay to work hard. It's okay to be really passionate about something, but you also have to just know that you have to have balance. Your work is not your life. Your life is what happens outside of your work. Also, don't work hard just for material things. Like, never let buying a material thing be a driver in your life. Don't be like, I'm going to spend less time with my family so I can get a nicer car, or so I can get a nicer house. It's like Fight Club, that phrase, advertising has us chasing cars and clothes and working jobs that we hate so we can buy stuff that we don't need. And so that's what we can learn from it. A little bit of balance. Yeah, sure, work hard, but also make sure that you live your life. So that's the second one. Number 3 was that I wish I had the courage to express my feelings. And in this, she actually gives an example of a man who she took care of who was a Holocaust survivor. And he went through so much in the Holocaust that what he learned was to put up walls and to not fully let people in. And he realized at the end of his life, he was really sad because he felt like he never really let anybody in. He just kept his armor up all of the time. And he was really regretting because he felt like his wife and his children never really knew who he was. And in turn, he also felt like he didn't really know who he was. And so he's at the end of his life and he saw, the Holocaust was a terrible thing that he had to go through. But then he actually carried it with him and what he learned from the Holocaust and put up these walls and this armor and didn't fully let people in. And that was a really big regret of his, of like, you know what? I wish I would have let my wife know who I am. I wish I let my children know who I really am. And so he regretted not being vulnerable with them and letting his true self out. And so what can we learn from this when we look at it? Well, we live in a society, especially speaking as a man, where a lot of times we're told our feelings aren't valid. And this isn't just from a man's perspective. It also happens with women as well. But, we're taught our feelings aren't valid. We're taught that we're supposed to shut up and just get stuff done and not pay attention to it. But what happens is we end up, going through life and getting scars. And a lot of times when we get scars, we put up armor to protect ourselves. And the word vulnerability actually means when you look at the root word in Greek, actually means the ability to be wounded. And so we have to understand that, we need to open ourselves up. We don't have to open ourselves up to everybody and be vulnerable to everybody. But are there some people who you trust, who have your best intentions in life, that really want the best for you, that you can show your true self to, that you can fully express and not hold it all in? And so that was number 3, is that I wish I had the courage to express my feelings. Number 4 is that I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends. And so the author had all of these people that were at the end of their lives. And as they were at the end of their lives, they started thinking about how many people that they knew that they haven't seen in so long that weren't showing up to say goodbye to them. And they thought, man, I wish I would have stayed in touch with my friends. And a lot of them said that they worked so hard that they actually lost touch with the friends who mattered the most. And they were lonely at the end of their lives because they let those friendships slip away and they gave up the friendships to work. They got busy with work, they got busy with family, raising children, and they regretted not keeping in touch with some of their friends and letting everyday life come ahead of some of those friendships. So it's not like you don't have to have a list of 30 people that you need to stay in touch with, but do you have like a core group of people who actually you want to stay in touch with that maybe you've lost touch with? Like I know that a lot of you listening right now, you're going, damn, there's this one person. I haven't talked, we've sent some text messages, we've sent some funny memes to each other over the past couple of years, but we haven't really like had face-to-face time. And I'd really like to rebuild that relationship. Can you reach out to them today? And so when we look at this, what can we learn from it? Let's stay in touch with the people who matter the most. When you get all of the money in the world, you won't be able to buy those people back if those people are out of your lives. If they die, you won't be able to pull them back with all of the money, all of the billions of dollars you can make. And so let's not let everyday life and working and family get so busy that it gets in the way of other relationships, right? So who's a friend that you miss that you haven't seen in a while? Reach out to them today. Do it. Do it right now. Take your phone out. Send them a text. Hey, how's everything going? I was just thinking about you. We should talk soon. Go get some coffee if they're local, or we should do FaceTime if they live in another city. So reach out to them today. Actually, reach out to them right now as you're listening to me. Find some time to talk and work on becoming close again. And then the fifth one, which is really just a sad one and interesting one, is that I wish I let myself be happier. This one's really challenging because, with advertisements constantly telling us that we're not good enough, we're not smart enough, we're not thin enough, we're not pretty enough, we don't have the right cars and clothes and houses, and we're not enough until we buy all of the shit that they have, it's easy to think that we're not enough and not allow ourselves to be happy. The great thing about happiness, and I've really been focusing a lot, me personally, as of recently, on my happiness. And the great thing about it is that happiness is a choice. And this isn't some bullshit, lofty, fairy dust sprinkling phrase that I'm using. Happiness is really a choice. Like there's some moments where I can find myself getting like deep, dark into thoughts and like, oh my God, I get so much shit and this thing's wrong in the business and this thing's wrong here and all this stuff. Then I take a step back and I can notice some stress and I'm like, yeah, but life's fucking amazing. And I'll go outside and it's not based off of how much money is in my bank account or the people around me. I just look and I'm like, man, it's beautiful. It's a sunny day. I have food in my stomach. I have water. I have a couple people who love me. And it's like, when you take yourself out of it, it's like, oh yeah, you know what? Things are really good. And as we try to, we strive to achieve and achieve and achieve. A lot of times the achievement, because the thing that we're working towards, we're not there yet. We feel like I'm not good enough yet because I'm not there yet. And so we can allow ourselves to be happy and grateful at any moment. And realize that what we currently have is enough. And we can learn to be grateful for all those things. We can learn to love ourselves through self-talk and learn to let go of the past and forgive ourselves for things that have happened and forgive other people so that we can let go of that anger that's still inside of us. Because we can't change anything that's from the past, but we can learn from it and we can decide to be grateful and be happy where we currently are. And there's so many people that get to the end of their lives and wish that they would have let themselves be happier. That's the actual phrase in the book, is that I wish I had let myself be happier. Not I wish I was happier. I wish I had let myself have been happier. And I've always heard Ram Dass say it, but like he always says, death is like taking off a tight shoe. Where it's just like we're so just, white knuckling our way through life sometimes. When sometimes we just need to take a deep breath, just kind of chill a little bit. And so what can we learn from this? Make a list of things that make you happy. I've said this many times in the podcast. I had a friend that was in really deep depression. And years after I met him, he was already out of the depression and he had built a successful business and he's, just got done writing a book, all these cool things. And he had said a phrase that I don't think I'll ever forget. And he says, I will not let my happiness or my depression be left up to chance. And so what he did is he made this thing called a happy list and all these things that make him happy, the biggest things, the smallest things. And he would look at his happy list every single morning and he would look at his schedule and he would say, how can I schedule in some of these things to make me happy? And then he just became happier as he started doing it. So it's a choice. So what can we do to start bringing more things that make us happy? And so these are the 5 things that people die with regrets. If we really want to be smart, why don't we try to avoid these things? Why don't we try to make our life be better by knowing, this is what people have died with and have regrets. So the first one is I wish I lived a life that was true to myself and not the life that other people expected of me. Number 2 is that I wish I hadn't worked so hard. Number 3 is that I wish I had the courage to express my feelings. Number 4 is that I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends. And number 5 is that I wish I had let myself be happier. So that's what I got for you for today's episode. If you love this episode, please do me a favor right now. Take out your phone, share this on your Instagram stories, tag me in at Rob Dial Jr., ROBDIALJR. The only way that this podcast grows, the only way that we impact more people's lives is from you guys actually sharing it from grassroots. So if you'd share it on your Instagram anytime that you hear an episode that you like, it allows more people to be able to find this podcast. And so I would greatly, greatly appreciate if you do that. So with that, I'm going to leave you the same way I leave you every single episode. Make it your mission, make someone else's day better. I appreciate you, and I hope that you have an amazing day. Welcome to today's video. Today I'm going to teach you how to read faster and retain more information inside of your head so you can use it. Let's dive in. I want you to understand this. This is something that I realized a long time ago. Learning is the secret to getting ahead in life. It is. If you want to have a better life, you need to learn more. If you want to get ahead of your competition, you need to learn more. If there's something that you can't do, you need to learn more. Whatever it is that you need to learn. And I read a really concerning statistic about 3 years ago. And this was what it was. 33% of high school graduates never read another book. 42% of college graduates never read another book. And 80% of US families did not buy a book last year. That's insane. I can't even believe those statistics are real. 8 out of 10 US families didn't buy a book last year. But if you look at the other statistic, the average CEO reads about 60 books per year. So the average CEO reads more than a book a week, yet 8 out of 10 American households did not buy a book last year. This is an amazing secret because it shows you if you want to get ahead of everybody else, simply learn more. Get more information into your head. And I don't mean going and scrolling on Instagram and watching 15-second videos of someone teaching you something. I mean sitting down, taking time, and actually focusing on reading something from some of the most intelligent people who have ever existed on this planet. And there's many statistics that show how good reading is for you. Reading improves your focus, it improves your memory, it improves your empathy, it improves your communication skills, but it can also reduce your stress and improve your mental health. And I want you to understand this. This is the beautiful thing about reading a book. The smartest and the wisest humans who have ever walked on this earth have written books or written articles or written papers. And even if they're not alive right now, you can still learn from them. And so for me, I love getting better. I love learning things. I'm not really a fan of reading, but I do read because I want to learn. And so what I'm going to teach you is basically I guess you could call it my secret of how I read faster, but then how I take that information and I store knowledge into my brain to make sure that my recall rate is way better. So I can read faster. I'm going to use that, give you that secret. And then the way that you can retain more information and store it for the future takes a little bit longer. But I'm telling you, you can take a book and basically digest the entire book and have almost the entire thing memorized in your head based off of what it is that you go through and you read. Okay. Now, back in 2017, I realized that Kindle was the best way to do this. Now, I'm going to say this. I love physical books more than I love Kindle, but Kindle really opened up a lot of things for me, okay? Kindle is the secret to reading a lot of books. And here's how it works, okay? If you go onto Amazon, and I'm not sponsored by Amazon, they should pay me for this because this is going to be big for a lot of you. If you go onto Amazon and you look at a book, right? Say you pull up my book, Level Up by Rob Dial, and you go to it, right? You can see the price of the book if you got the physical copy. You can see the price of the book if you got the Kindle. You can see the price of the book if you got the audiobook. Almost always, the audiobook is the most expensive thing that you can buy. What's cool though, is if you go and you buy the Kindle version, it will give you the option for something that's called audible narration for most books. Audible narration is basically the audiobook, but made for Kindle. And so sometimes it's even cheaper to buy Kindle with audible narration than it is just to buy the audiobook itself. And the crazy part about it is Audible narration is the freaking audiobook. I don't understand how this works, but that's just the way they have it, right? So let's say that you want to go and you want to buy The Alchemist, right? You can look at the audiobook. I checked it the other day. It was $21. Or you can buy it on Kindle and it's $11. And then there's a little tiny check mark and it says, check this box for Audible narration, which is $12. So Kindle and Audible narration together are $23 when the audiobook itself is only $21. And like I said, sometimes it's even cheaper. Here's the secret, okay? Audible narration is the audiobook, but for most of the actual Kindles with Audible narration is while it's reading it to you out loud, the book itself, it highlights the sentence that you're on so you can follow it along. And so literally you're looking at the Kindle version of the book, you're having the reader read it out loud to you, and it's highlighting the sentence that you're on so you know exactly where you are on that page of the book. Then what you can do is you can turn the speed up 2x, and now you're reading the book twice as fast. You're reading it twice as fast, and you're reading it with your eyes, but you're also hearing it with your ears, which means instead of using one of your senses to retain information, you're using two of your senses to retain information. Now, here's the other thing that's really great about Kindle and using it is when I have a physical copy of the book, the main thing that held me back from Kindle before I ever tried it in 2017 was that when I read a book, I underline and I highlight and I make tons of notes in my books. You can do the exact same thing with Kindle. I should be sponsored by Kindle. This is crazy. I'm like, literally, it's almost like a giant promotion for Kindle is what I feel like this is. But what you can do is you can go through and you can highlight the part of the book that you like the most, and then you can make notes on the book as well. And then what's great about it is this. This is what's really good. A lot of times I'll wake up in the morning and I'll be reading a book and I'll be going through it and I'll be like excited to finish this book, but then I've got to go do something because my life exists, right? So then I've got to get in my car and I've got to drive somewhere. If I'm reading it at home on my iPad and I have the Kindle app and I'm like, oh, I've got to go for a drive, I've got to, go into town, and it's a 25-minute drive to go into town, I can then connect my phone, which also has the Kindle app, to my Bluetooth, and I can play the audiobook from the Kindle so I can listen to the audiobook while I'm driving as well. You can't read a book and drive at the same time, but you can with Kindle, which is what's amazing. So I have it on 3 devices. I have it on my phone, I have it on my iPad, I have it on my computer. And what's good about it is, let's say that I'm at home and now I've got to drive to the doctor's office. So I'm at home and I'm reading the book, and it's saying it out loud to me and all of that. Then I get into my car and I'm listening to the book. And if there's any parts that I like, what I do is I pause it, I wait till I get to the next stoplight, and then I underline the parts that I liked, and I'll make notes, whatever I need to, and I'll put my phone back down, push play, and I'll keep driving my car. And then let's say I was driving to the doctor's office and I've got a 20-minute wait. Well, now I can go ahead and look at my phone and I can keep reading the book. I can put in my Bluetooth headphones and I can listen to the book being read to me as well. And so it doesn't mean like a physical copy of a book, you can sit there and you can read it at home. And this physical copy of the book, you can read at the doctor's office, but you can't read it for that 25-minute drive to the doctor's office and the 25-minute drive back from the doctor's office. And so what's cool about it is, instead of just sitting there and scrolling through Instagram, you can read the book right there. Or, hey, real quick, I want to introduce you to something called Mindset Mentor Plus. If you love this podcast, you will absolutely love what I'm about to talk about. I designed Mindset Mentor Plus to help you actively integrate every one of these episodes into your life. And here's how it works. With every episode of this podcast that comes out, Mindset Mentor Plus subscribers get more. You're going to get multiple page, detailed, printable worksheets, effectively a mini masterclass that's way more in depth than just this podcast. They also come with journaling questions, challenges, assignments, and so much more, so that you're not just listening to these podcasts passively, but you're actively integrating them into your life. That way you improve much faster. I also do monthly Q&A sessions in there and much, much more. If you want to learn more about it, go to mindsetmentor.com or click the link that's down in the description. This is another thing that I love. Because I've been using Kindle for so long, I can go back, let's say that I'm sitting at a doctor's office. I know it's going to take a little while, right? So there were some appointments when we would go to the doctor. I would go to the doctor with Lauren for the baby. it'd be like an hour and a half waiting in the waiting room. So instead of scrolling on Instagram or doing something stupid with my life, I would go back and reread all of my notes and highlights from another book that I read. And so in the time that we had to go like every other week to the doctor's office, I was just going back through all of the books I've read in the past, and I was relearning them again and seeing my notes and seeing my underlines and seeing my highlights, essentially rereading books over and over and over and over and over again in a very short period of time. That is how you can just crush books and get way better at getting through books. You can retain more information. You can do all of that. Now, let me give you a pro tip that I've never actually shared before. This is going to take longer, but this is how you actually get it into your brain. Okay, so here's the way that it works. You've probably heard before, if you really want to learn something, you must teach it. And so what I will do is I will read a book, I will underline it, I will highlight it, and then at the end of the book, I will go into my Google Drive, my Google Docs, and I will put the title of the book at the top. And what I do is I look back through all of my underlines and highlights, and I will literally type out all of my underlines, all of my highlights. Takes a long time, I promise you this, but it helps you really understand stuff. I'll type it all out on Google Docs, exactly what my underlines and highlights were. And then when I have a note of something of the way I can use this note for my podcast, or that I can teach it to somebody else, or just basically how my brain is processing the information, I will then make a note under that highlight that I just wrote inside of Google Docs, but I'll put it in a different color. And so for me, if it is in black, that means that it is actually from the book. If it is in blue, it is my notes about the book itself and how I can teach it or how I can learn it or how I'm processing it. This is what's amazing about it, is that you can read information a lot faster, but then what you could do is you can take it, if you really want to go the extra level, put it into Google Docs, put your notes down, and then put your thoughts around all of your notes down as well. Because if you want to learn something really, really well and really understand it, teach it. And so what I'm doing is I'm using Google Docs as a way to relearn, reprocess, and teach this information, or how I'm going to teach it to you guys who listen to the podcast. I've never shared this tip before, but I promise you it will help you so much if you do this. Another really big tip that I'll give you is, if you're the type of person who's trying to learn more, if you're trying to get ahead in life and you're like, I just need to find some time and I need to start really focusing on it, what I would recommend that you do is you look at your schedule, you put down when you have to work, when your workout is, all of that, your drive time, but then try to look for gaps, 15 to 30 minute gaps in your schedule where you can get in more reading. You know, I prefer to read as part of my morning routine. And then I also prefer to read in the morning as my morning routine, but I also prefer to read in the evening as a replacement for Netflix. Like, I still watch Netflix, but I don't allow myself to go on binges. So like, if you have a show that you like, if you're like deep into Game of Thrones, or if you're deep into House of Dragon or whatever it might be, and you have like this show that you really love, cool. Don't give it up. Don't take away things that you love, but give yourself one episode per day. That's about 45 minutes to an hour. And then read for the rest of the time. Don't strip yourself of something that you love, but just give yourself, just pull back a little bit, right? A lot of people reach out to me as well, and they're like, hey, Rob, how do I wake up earlier in the morning? How do I create a morning routine? But they have trouble falling asleep. Okay. This is a really great routine for falling asleep earlier and waking up earlier, is turn off your TV, and then don't allow yourself to get on your phone, and then just use your Kindle and just read. Use reading as the part of your evening routine. Brush your teeth, then get in bed, and then read. If you have problems falling asleep at night, read before you go to bed. And for most people that I've told this to, sleeping problems just tend to go away for some reason. So I would create an evening routine where you read before bed, allow it to make you tired, and then you go to bed earlier. This way your brain can also store all of the information that you just put into it right before you went to bed. And I want you to understand, I realized this a long time ago when I was younger, is that most people stop learning. Most people are just fine with, I don't want to say they're fine with where they are. They're not fine with where they are, but they don't want to do anything about it. For me, I understood that the more educated I became on anything, the more that I could understand stuff, the further ahead in life I would get from everybody else. And there's a really good quote that says, the difference between someone who cannot read and someone who does not read leads to the same place. Both of them lead to ignorance. And so I want you to understand, you're listening to this podcast because you want to get better. You want to improve your life. You want something different. This is a really good place to start. I think you should definitely listen to podcasts. You should try to get as much information into your brain. But also there is something about sitting down, reading a book, taking your time, doing nothing else. Like, you can listen to podcasts and you can drive and all of that stuff. And it's great, can work out, all of that. But there is something about like just sitting down and having 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour just to yourself where you're dedicating it to you, to your mental health, to growing, to your education, to getting better. And ultimately, I think, reading books is a cheat code to life. In this day and age, there's a couple extra cheat codes that help reading happen faster and getting more knowledge into your brain. All of the knowledge that's ever existed is already in the books. There's literally no good excuse to not read. So just find more time for yourself, find more time to read. And if you want to use some of my tips to read faster, but also process more information better, you've got them as well. So that's what I got for you for today's episode. If you love this episode, please do me a favor. Share it on your Instagram stories. Tag me in at Rob Dial Jr., ROBDIALJR. Also, if you love the Mindset Mentor, you will definitely love Mindset Mentor Plus. It is a community and program that I created to help you guys that are out there that listen to the podcast integrate it into your life even more. So for every episode that comes out of the Mindset Mentor Plus subscribers are going to get the episode, but they're also going to get detailed worksheets that they can print out, they can underline, they can highlight. There's journaling questions that are a part of it. There's assignments. There's an entire community of over 1,000 people that are all across the world that you'll be joining and you'll be able to connect with through our platform. I also do Q&A sessions there as well, and there's a whole lot more bonuses. So if you want to learn more about it, just go to mindsetmentor.com. Once again, mindsetmentor.com. And with that, I'll leave you the same way I leave you every single episode. Make it your mission to make somebody else's day better. I appreciate you, and I hope that you have an amazing day.